Ahoy, Buccaneers and Buccarinas! My name is Captain Yugioh, and wow, there's been a lot of stuff going on in Overwatch in the last week or so. What, between the PTR getting, moved over into the live server with Year of the Rat, which came out on Thursday, which was basically being teased like literally the day before it actually got released. The whole controversy around the whole Doom change. You would think 0.3 seconds wouldn't matter, but apparently it does so much that it's like they had to revert the nerf just a little bit. Now it's like 0.35 on the live server, but it's a little bit. It's a little better. Doesn't feel terribly different, but it's a thing. It's a slight difference. And then, of course, we've got the new Goats Brigida skin that got revealed for the Overwatch League, which that's going to be starting up. And then we got one of the professionals, professional Overwatch streamers teasing that some big announcement's going to come up in the next couple of weeks, because of course there's going to be a big announcement coming up in the next couple of weeks. Whew. It's been quite exhausting, but probably the biggest piece of news that came out from the last week or so was actually a forum post, of all things. I know, right? Just, you wouldn't think that. But Jeff Kaplan ended up putting up his huge, list, this essay, this, personal dialogue of sorts, into a forum post that was devoted to, talking about how the damage roll queue time is ridiculously long. I mean, if you go into any sort of roll queue thing, like regular quick play now or competitive, and you're like, I want to play a tank character, it takes maybe 2 minutes to get into a game. You go into support, it's more like, it's 3-4 minutes, maybe 5 or 6 if there's a lot of people, but not really a whole, too bad, all things considered. I mean, you just play around with something in, the game browser, or you have practice or something like that. Damage is at least 7 minutes long, on average, and usually it's longer than that, more like 8, 9, 10 minutes, and you could be waiting there for even longer than that, especially if you're up on the highest levels of play, where there's fewer players in general. But there was something that came up with Jeff's post in particular, where he was talking about how the developers were experimenting with different things with regards to the game. And one of those things was experimenting with something to cut back on the damage roll queue time. The way they were suggesting it was that right now it's a 2-2-2 setup, where it's 2 damage dealers, 2 tanks, 2 supports. But their idea was to be go from that to a 3-1-2. Or 3-2-1, depending on how you look at that. But it's basically 3 damage characters, 2 supports, 1 tank. And that is just something that completely just messes with people on so many fundamental levels. But they're gonna try and roll it out on the PTR just as an experiment, see how people take to it. Because based on their experiences, it was kind of oh, this feels kind of different, kind of FPS-y, kind of like how Overwatch used to feel like, and it feels kind of quick-paced, chaotic, and all that sort of thing, and it's different. It as it should be. But then it's kind of well, okay, that makes sense, but does that work for the balance of the game? I mean, we're talking about a game that is currently balanced around the 2-2-2 setup, and there would have to be a lot of changes when there's only 1 tank and suddenly 3 damage. There was talks about making Roadhog a damage dealer, just a damage class hero with 400 health and no damage reduction, and it's kind of these are all interesting thought experiments, but I just wanted to kind of give my 2 cents about this whole idea of potentially switching off from the 2-2-2 composition to a 3-2-1, and I don't think it would really work that well. It just fundamentally feels like it just breaks the game in a way. Kind of to try and explain that, I think, I kind of feel like I need to explain how I view the whole class system. In my thoughts, the damage roll is meant to be a group of heroes that pretty much will be able to deal a lot of damage most of the time, right? It's pretty obvious. You look at a character like Soldier 76. He's got the pulse rifle. He's got the rockets. He's dealing a lot of damage. You look at a character like Junkrat, easily just junk bombs, 120, 120, 120, and then he's got those concussion mines. He's go blowing people up, blowing people up. You got Reaper, who's got the shotguns. He just walks up to people, bam, bam, bam. Like, everybody thinks of it as like this damage-dealing class, and then the logical, through line for that is that, okay, if I'm dealing lots of damage, then I want to deal a lot of that damage, enough of that damage to kill things, so I want to get killing on things, so I want to deal, I want to get like gold damage and gold limbs, I gotta be like killing people. But that's not really, like, that's a huge leap there is the problem, because it's like, your role is just to deal damage. You're here to, like, help break down shields, you're here to break down health bars, you're basically helping to do a lot of damage to get to that killing thing, but your goal isn't to go kill things, if that makes sense. I'll get to that in a bit, like, just stay with me on this. Think of the damage roll as something that helps facilitate making damage happen, whether that's dealing lots of damage themselves and characters like Soldier and, Reaper or Junkrat even, or it's to help make damage happen or open people up to damage, like, or support the team in dealing more damage. So, like, you look at Soldier again, and yeah, he's got like the pulse rifle and the rockets, but he's also got this little healing field. It's like, why does he need a healing field? There's not very many characters in the damage category that heal all other characters. They don't heal a whole lot of other characters. Only Soldier really has like that heal. There are a few characters that have that self-healing factor. Reaper, Mei, Tracer to some degree, but Soldier's is the only one that actually heals other characters. Like, Junkrat doesn't have anything like that, Pharah doesn't have anything like that, but Soldier has this thing where he's like, bam, now everybody gets healed, which means they all stay up, kind of like how if he was like a support character of sorts. He's like a miniature support character in that way, but he's helping to help people deal more damage in the long run. You look at a character like, going back to Mei even. Mei doesn't actually deal a whole lot of damage herself. Like, the most damaging thing in her kit is probably the icicle. And then she's got her, like, her main thing is, like, just the freeze gun. She points, she shoots, and then they get frozen. They don't suddenly die. Like, it's a gradual death at best. Like, you're freezing them, you're slowing them down, and then if you stop them, suddenly they can't do anything. They have no abilities, they have no movement, they don't get to do anything, really. But Mei's not really doing a whole lot of damage in all of that. She is doing damage, but she's not doing all the damage. Usually that's from other people who then, like, capitalize on the fact that she's freezing characters. So she's slowing people down, which means they're not able to respond to things quickly, they're not able to use their abilities effectively. If she completely freezes them, they're not able to do anything for like a whole second, and that means the rest of the team can inflict damage. You look at some of the characters in the damage category, and it's like, there are a lot of them that do a lot of damage, but then there are some that are like Mei or like Sombra that don't do a whole lot of damage, but help others to do more damage. Symmetra, Torbjorn, these are characters that don't themselves do a whole lot of damage, but they can do things that help to build up that damage, help to break down barriers, help to lower the health bars of a lot of enemy characters, even kill them, that's okay. But it's not the goal for the damage category to kill things. It's the goal to inflict damage on things, break things down. That's what damage is about. It's either supporting the ability to do damage to things or doing a lot of damage to things. That's what damage is. Support's pretty obvious, right? Like, that's the one that everybody just unanimously agrees upon. They're the ones that are just like, heal everybody. Just keep everybody up. Every character in the support category has something to keep everybody up. But they also have something in their kit that allows them themselves to stay up, so they can keep everybody up. Like, so for instance, like, Ana, right? She's got the little sniper rifle, and she goes pew pew, and then all that. But then she's got the Bionade, which can keep other people up, but it also antis enemy players, which means it can anti people in a fight when she's like, she throws it away, and then bam, it hits a bunch of your guys, and it hits a bunch of their guys, and then their guys can't get healed, and your guys get double healed. But she also can use it on herself if she's getting attacked by like a flanking character like Genji or Tracer. It goes BAM! Now you can't get healed, and I will get a little support from my other support player, and I will be able to 1v1 you, or I can just sleep dart. You're asleep, you're out of the fight for like several seconds at that point. Like, I think it's like 4 or 5 seconds or something like that. As long as nobody touches you, you're done. You can't do anything, which means it's a 5v6, and that puts the fight in our favor at that point. Yugioh, he's got the speed boost, of course, but he's also got the boop. We always think of the boop as that thing that just knocks people into pits and knocks people off the maps and just gets the environmental kills and is super crazy. But it's also something that keeps other characters, enemy characters, away from Yugioh, so he can continue to speed people or heal people, right? And then you got Regita. She's got the stun, but she's also got that rocket flail. She's got that boop. You look at Moira. She's got, you know, the fade. Just poof. Just vamoose. Get out of there. Mercy. She's got the flying thing. Everybody in the support category has the ability to heal and the ability to evade. Even Zenyatta does. Although his is his ultimate, so it's not, you know, reliable the way it is with some of the other characters. And then we come to the tank category, and that tank category is always the most misunderstood one because nobody seems to understand exactly what tanks are supposed to do. Everybody knows the qualities of a tank. It's basically just big, beefy body with lots of health that goes onto a point and stands there. You know, maybe attacks, but usually they'll have like a barrier of some sort. If they're a good main tank, right? If they're a main tank, they have a barrier, right? But like otherwise, nah, they just shield. That's it. That's what tanks do. Except that's not what tanks do, right? Some people will say that it's what is a tank's job? It's to create space. But what does that mean? What does it mean to create space? What does it mean to actually like be creating space? And a lot of people will look at it and be like, okay, the best way to create space is to get aggressive. Charge right in there, swing your hammer around, and do lots of damage. And that's not wrong, technically. That's really not. Like that is a way of creating space, but it's also an easy way to get yourself killed. What it really is, with tanking, it's more about resource management. It's occupying the space, but it's managing your resources. Managing, you know, your abilities. You know, the cooldowns, the ability cooldowns. It's managing that charge. It's managing that flame strike. It's managing your shield health. It's managing your own health. It's managing your armor health. That little yellow part of your body that's usually there. Or if you've got, like, shield health in some capacity. Like, if you're a wrecking ball, for instance, you got, like, the little bubble thing that does the extra shield health. It's managing... It's all about resource management. And that managing those resources helps you to stay alive, which helps you to create that space, which helps you to help protect the rest of your team, which helps them to do damage, which helps them to kill people. Right? Like, that's what a tank is. I know it sounds much more complicated than just standing on a point and just being there and occupying space, but that's what it is. It's not just standing there and occupying space, it's monitoring all this stuff so you can help do the damage that needs to be done. And that sometimes that means you're swinging your hammer, you're charging in there, you're throwing a fire strike. Sometimes that means you are just standing there with your shield up, protecting your teammates behind you. That's what it is to me to be a tank. And considering I play a lot of tank, I feel like I'm a little, you know, I don't want to say qualified, but I feel like I know a little bit more about what I'm talking about when it comes to being a tank. With all of that being said, how does this affect the relationship between all these roles when it comes to the 2-2-2 versus the 3-2-1? Well, when a 2-2-2, it's basically this balance then, where you have 2 people assigned to each of these roles. 2 people are dishing out lots of damage or helping to increase the amount of damage coming around. 2 people are keeping everybody up and keeping themselves up so that way they can continue to keep everybody else up. And then 2 other people are there managing their resources, creating that space so they can keep everybody alive so everybody can help kill people. Because as the team, it's your job to kill people. It is not the responsibility of any individual role to kill the enemy teammates. If you don't end up killing anybody on the enemy team, it is not the damage person's fault, it's not the tank person's fault, it's not the support player's fault. It's the team's fault. Because the damage, might not have been doing their part of it. But the tanks might also not have been creating that space. The support characters might not be able to keep everybody up. It's not any one person's fault, per se, but as a team, it is your fault. In a 2-2-2 setup, having 2 damage dealers just has 2 people who are responsible for that role. 2 supports responsible for that role, and 2 tank players, 2 people responsible for that role. And it keeps things generally balanced. Now, the heroes themselves, of course, they change around and the like, so you have, maybe you have Soldier McCree in one group, or Hanzo Widowmaker, or Sombra May, I don't really know, right? Then you got support. Could be a whole lot of different things, and they may have, different things. We've seen, Ana Moira, we've seen Mercy Brigitte, we've seen Brigitte Lucio, we've seen Zen Lucio before, we've seen Moira Brigitte, we've seen a lot of different things with this. And then here in the middle, it's, again, same sort of thing. 2 different tanks. Orisa Sigma, Wrecking Ball Reinhardt, We've seen stuff that works, doesn't work, has some, meshing, has some not so meshing, but the thing is that 2 people are then each responsible for that role. When you come to the 3-2-1 system, well, now you have 3 damage dealers and 1 tank player, right? The 1 tank player now has to be responsible for creating space for 3 characters, right? So you have 1 character who has, 400, 500, maybe even 600 health, trying to fight off 3 enemy characters, and ideally getting supported by 2 support characters. But how do you create space against 3 characters who can kill you faster than the 1 character could? And that's the thing about the balancing act in this regard, is that it just feels like there's not a single tank that can fight 3 DPS. If you've ever really played, if you play Quick Play Classic, then you kind of have seen some of the craziest comps that can come about, where it's sometimes it's 3 DPS, sometimes it's 4 DPS, sometimes it's just a team of 6 DPS players. And then where are you at? But then the thing about it is that when you get increases in the number of DPS, you do get more damage. There's no doubt about that. You do get more damage, because that's just what it is. You get the ability to inflict more damage upon the opposing targets. But then you don't have any real protection through that tank. You've lost anywhere from 200, 300, 400 health. That's a lot of health, and that's not even including shield health, right? You've lost another, anywhere from another 600 to 1600 health for shields? It just doesn't add up. How does adding in maybe another 100, 200 damage from a 200 health hero equate to losing upwards of 400 extra health and 1600 extra shields, potentially? That's just mind-blowing. That's not an even trade. And some people will look at that and be like, well, it is kind of an even trade, because now these characters can handle this 1 character much more readily, and then they can wipe the team. But that's not the thing about Overwatch. The thing about Overwatch is that it's built up on these balances, these compositional 2-2-2s. You think back to metas past, say pre-GOATs even. You looked at the dive meta, and it's okay, you think of the characters that were in the dive meta. You had Winston, D.Va, 2 tanks. You had Genji Tracer, that's 2 DPS, and you had Zenyatta Lucio. That was 2 supports. That was a 2-2-2 composition. And that was before 2-2-2 was the standard. When you have the ability to change the comp in such a drastic manner, the way it is the 3-2-1 sort of situation, you get this weird shift in ideology as to what then is important. And there's all these characters that just suddenly become better, certainly, but then you look at the tanks and it's okay, what character, what 1 tank would work in a 3-2-1? And there's not really one that works that well. And suddenly it feels like the tank player is insignificant, which is bad. And when you go to the 3-2-1, suddenly you have one tank who has to fulfill the role of essentially two tanks. And no one tank currently, as they are currently built, can fulfill the role of two tanks. Because they're not designed that way. They're not built that way. And damage, you know, they'll do a lot more damage to the tank than the tank could ever really do to them. So it just becomes more of a matter of, okay, we need to just take out the tank. And then suddenly you get characters like Reaper and Mei showing up, Symmetra, Torbjorn, you know, just a lot of damage characters that ultimately counter the tank. You know, if you're fighting against a Reinhardt, for instance, are you going to just sit there in front of his shield just blasting away into it, or are you going to play like Pharah, fly above him where he can't get you, and shoot down on him? Are you going to walk up to him as Reaper, or are you going to, like, stay safe, play it easy, and just be Soldier, or Torbjorn, or Symmetra? I don't really know. But it seems to me like there's a lot more counterplay to individual tanks than there is to, say, two tanks. You just make it 3 DPS countering to one tank, it becomes really easy to do that. And suddenly the tank player can't do anything. It feels unfulfilling to be a tank, to play that role, because you're dealing with characters that will basically counter you. Not just check you in the sense that, you know, oh, they'll be able to, like, you know, do whatever. I'm talking about, like, if you're Reinhardt, you're getting hacked. You're gonna have to just deal with being hacked. You're gonna be dealing with characters that you won't ever get near. You are never getting near any of these characters, no matter what map you play, because they're gonna keep their distance. Or if they aren't gonna keep their distance, then they're gonna deal a whole lot more damage to you than you're gonna be able to do to them. Reaper, right? So it just feels like that imbalances the game and favors more damage. Because, well, I mean, it does. That's the whole idea, right? It's supposed to favor the damage characters so that way the roll queue times can be shorter, right? But then it's disenfranchising the tank players, who then have to pick amongst 5, 6, 7 characters, maybe even less than that if they have to rebalance characters to be, you know, less tanks and more damage. And then suddenly you just have, like, characters playing a single character that immediately gets countered by the other 3 characters. Because when you think of, like, the damage category, there's a wide variety of options to help you out in countering a single tank. But when you're the single tank, there is not a single option, at least that I can think of, that wouldn't be able to be countered by 3 DPS picks. It breaks the game on a fundamental level. And it makes it impossible for a tank to fulfill their role, and that's when it becomes a free-for-all. You might as well at that point make it 4 damage characters and 2 supports and just remove the tank class entirely, and then that's not Overwatch. That's just, I mean, it's just some other FPS game, I guess, because it certainly isn't Overwatch anymore at that point. But that's just kind of how I think about it in terms of the 3-2-1. What do you guys think about all that? Does the 3-2-1 formation completely break the game? Do you think they'll actually try to implement it? It'll be certainly interesting to try it out on the PTR when it finally comes around. I probably am not looking forward to the idea of experiencing so much pain and torment as a tank player, but we shall see. We'll see how that experiment goes. If it works out, you know, whatever, but I don't think it's going to be something that's ultimately going to make its way into the game. I don't think there's any reason to bring it to the main game, because it just breaks so many different fundamental basics about how the game operates currently. It's like, there's just so many things. And that's not even getting into, like I said, the nitty-gritty details of just how do we classify what a tank is as opposed to, damage, and how do we make the tanks individually strong enough to take on 3 DPS characters? You got me there. So, in any case, hope that gives you some food for thought. I know I'm gonna need some food for my thought, because this has been quite a lot of thought, and wow. Whew. Not sure where to I'm not even really sure where to go from this point, but yeah, maybe I'll make next week a little bit more lenient and relaxed. Yeah, you like, you know, all those custom games I've been playing. That's always been fun. Custom continues to save the day. Workshop is great.